So, Randy Green here again. Let us continue this little series of podcasts where we are adding in, or where I am adding in, some of the things that needs to be said. Some of you could call it frequently asked questions, but now here put together in some kind of series of information that pushes your buttons and generates certain crises, all depending on the content of your emotional and mental field. Now, do I have fear? Yes, of course I have fear. I have an amygdala like the rest of you. It is an electrochemical response mechanism to certain energetic influences, whatever that means, whatever it is physical, or it is emotional, or it's mental, or it's otherworldly, or it's from the lower levels of our reality beneath our feet, or it's from above our worlds, or whatever it is. New types of energy always instill fear within the system that we have, because, as I said, our energy system, as it is now, emotional field and mental field, the lower level of it is engineered to really preserve itself for all costs. Literally, even if you have to chop off an arm or bite off your foot, you would do that just to preserve who and what you are as you are now. You would you would not take the challenge. You would not figure out a way to undo the trap. You'd rather bite off your foot or chew off your leg or whatever, like an animal that doesn't know better, that doesn't know how to communicate and send out a signal and telepathically call upon a human that has the tools to assist it. We are dealing with what we could say technology that most of you have no knowledge of how to deal with. And that generates fear. Fear of the unknown is also very common. And I've gone through all of the stages of fear as I developed my brain to be able to process fear and fear responses and what instilled the fear, as in a process of learning. Yes, I have fear. I cannot go beyond fear. If I do that, I am not being responsible, because there is a mechanism to fear that we need to deal with as well. That is good for us, and we should have it so we respond correctly. And I want to put in here so you don't are kept in this whole dispense of what do I mean by that. What I mean by that is that some of you, as you do this, you will become less fear induced, because you then know what you're dealing with. You get accustomed to all of the horrors that hit your energy system, and by that you no longer respond with the same amount of fear. But that does not mean that you don't have to take responsibility for what's going on and the rules of engagement. Because I had some of you saying, well, I don't feel fear anymore, so I'll just, I had a chaotic night, and before the sessions we had, I got really shit-stormed or whatever, but I'm not afraid anymore. I'm dealing with it, and it's okay. I'm not going to give in to that thing that wants me to not talk to you. And then that's the problem, because then you are overriding the rules of engagement, as in self-contamination and self-containment. You have been contaminated by an entity, so therefore you should protect me from what's going on in your energies. And not because it's me, but because anyone else. You should do yourself into that. Sorry about that. You should self-contain. That was what I wanted to say. You should go into self-containment, where you focus on clearing out whatever's going on. You do not have conversations with others. You do not go to work. You do not go out there and shed off the energy codes of whatever's in your field. Because as our world grows more and more into density energies, the shift of energies from one system to another will become more and more easy. It will be easier and easier for these entities to jump. And they take charge of people that exactly have lost the ability to have fear, and in that are keeping focused on what's going on and doing that in any way because they're driven by fear. And then they flip over and have no fear. And then they think, I'm all good to go because I don't fear this. I know it's there, but I'm not dealing with it, so to speak. And I'm not all levels of it. It's still there. I can feel it. But no, I want to do this. I want to, because whatever the explanations and the self-justification for going out there or doing sessions with me or whatever is driving you. And that is breaking the rules of engagement. So that's another point of it, that, yeah, we might get to the point where we're actually able to deal with all of this and we can clear all of this and it doesn't scare the shit out of us anymore. But that does not mean that we are pure. That still means that we're just responding to it in a different way. But that does not take away the rules of engagement. That does not take away the responsibility for what's going on in our field. And should we put ourselves out there? Should we be in contact with others when we know that we have a potentiality for shedding off energy codes that are harmful for others? Because if we are not in a pristine state, then we should not be around others. Similar as we had with the different types. If you got the flu, you don't go around, you don't go to work if you have the flu, because you will then bring the flu to everybody else. So this is some of the challenges that we have as well. We go from one challenge to another, and then some of the mechanisms that have kept us at bay, they are suddenly gone because we get stronger in our energy, we get more knowledgeable of what's going on, and then we'll forget the rules of engagement. And that's where we need to mature into the next level of self-responsibility and understanding how much harm we can actually cause the surroundings, because we have now activated and our energy system is in a process of activation. And with that, we become dangerous to others, because as we are in the brink of activation, we can activate others on the same level, because what you are is in your field, and what is in your field will influence your surroundings. So this is also part of the challenge when we talk about the systemic energetic awareness, is that we are not only psychic energetically understanding what's going on within ourselves, and we understand who and what we are and our strengths and our weaknesses and what we need to clear out. It also leads into responsibility for the surroundings and the reality field we are part of, because we are influencing on everything that is around us and gets in touch with us, due to the potentials that we have. And that is part of the skill set. That's part of where you could say, well, where does the genetics of our original capacity of our template comes in play? That comes in play with the understanding of how do you affect reality and how do you affect others. And that depends on your genetics. That depends on your original skill set. That depends on your trajectory and your history and what you have gone through. For instance, if you have been taken, if you were part of the Pleiadian systems and your system were raided and you were taken to the Orion system, where you got reconditioned, let us call it that way, which is a very, 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 very nice way to put something that is beyond horrible, to shift the genetics of the Pleiadians, which used to be a very proud warrior race and scientists beyond the capacity of many of what we call the human civilizations in our sector at that time. So they were targeted, of course, to transform them into becoming the opposition of everything they were, the dark version of everything they were. And that takes a lot of torture. Let me just say it that way. And once they were shifted into that one, they still had the surface Pleiadian configuration. It was still visible. It still shone light. It still had the mission of the Pleiadian sciences and knowledge and teachers. But the higher levels of them, from the 8th dimension and up, had been turned into something completely else. The original trinity of them had been shifted into something else. They became the first carriers of some of the most infected types of genetics that were brought to our system. Some of the Sirians underwent the same issue. They thought, but that was a different level. They thought that they had contained it, and they then thought that by crystallizing the original genetic structure and keeping it encapsulated, then it would not spread, it would not break through, it would not cause harm to anyone else. And that's the core essence that they there modulated, in the belief that if only the outer layers were not affected, well, then they would not be harmful to others. On the contrary. So these are some of the things we're dealing with. This is also part of our joint history of the races that we hear you say, well, I'm not Pleiadian, I'm not Sirian. So what does that have to do with me? And I would say, well, it has to do with you because the Sirians I hear referred to had a high level of rhabdoid genetics. So that spread out through the racial grids to all types of rhabdoid genetics. And a part of some of the issues that the D10 collective have been dealing with, including what turned some of the original Draco human races into scavengers. So that's part of that problem. And then we have some of the Niburian Pleiadian humans that used to actually be on top of the hierarchy, and then they shifted into becoming the slaves of the Orions and other ones of the dark conglomerate, and doing their bidding because they still looked human. They still looked within the same vibration as was knowledgeable of being a progressive human, but they were something entirely else on the higher level. So they began traveling around from the fifth dimension, let's just use dimensions, and below, because there you don't have the capacity to see beyond the fifth dimension. If you're only developed into the fifth dimension, you will only see what's presented to you in the fifth dimension. You will not be able to see what's in the sixth and seventh and eighth and ninth and the 10th dimension of that being that is in front of you. And these are also some of the problems that we are dealing with in this system. So when I, for instance, tell you there you have rhabdoid genetics, you know that will be an issue that goes into what we could call the some of the rhabdoid levels of your composition. And that's one of the things males are typically struggling with, alongside with a specific type of Orion technology and a specific type of falling angelic technology and a specific type of Vega technology that goes with that type of humanoid enslavement, imprisonment, and issues that goes back to history, all depending on which history is yours to deal with. And then we have on the other side, where if people have Pleiadian, well, they are very close to what we understand as mammal and very close to what this physical reality, the reseeding of the fourth cycle, were all about. So when I say, well, people have a higher level of avian mammal types of genetics, well, then that goes into other levels of our history that must be cleared out. So it all comes down to joint history and personal history. It all comes down to joint timelines and personal timelines. It all comes down to your genetics and the racial grids you're part of. So we are all part of a whole, but not as in because you're part of that one, we are all the same. I must stress that we are absolutely not, and we should not be the same. We are not the same. Individuality, difference is beautiful. Diversity must be to create any form of progression. If we are all the same, nobody will progress because we will all be the same. There will be no challenge that will push us to move beyond our self-conceptualization and our self-perception of who and what we are, because we mirror ourselves in the surroundings and in the reality. And if everything is the same, there will be no progression. So no, we are not at oneness, but we are interconnected. And we should respect energy and life as it is, as different representations of what we could say the same fields of consciousness and the same fields of energy, which we are here all to transform. So going back to the understanding of the different challenges of knowing who and what we are, we develop as we go along in this work. And that's part of what we must do. That's part of the progression, that we understand how to respond more correctly to our electrochemical processes that are going on in the body when our physical form are encountering different forms of energies. But that does not take away our responsibility and the rules of engagement and how we should behave according to what we are dealing with and according to how we protect others and how we protect our reality field. It pushes us into the understanding, yeah, I might have learned to deal with it, but it's still there. It's still in my field. I still have responsibility for it. So the next logical step is not to go around, pretend it's not there, but to deal with it and figure out what is it then? Since I don't have fear anymore, let me look at it and investigate it and deal with it and look at it from all angles, really observing what is going on, because now I can see it without being fear-based and want to shy away and hide myself. I can now confront it and look at it and deal with it. That's what you are to do with your fearless state, where you have now been hit so many times by the same type of energy that your body and your energy fields are unfortunately accustomed to it and are no longer respond with, oh, this is dangerous, but just kind of, yeah, another one of that one. That's where you really begin to work with, what is it then? Now you can look at it. So how do you deal with it? You don't just go around and pretend it's not there because it doesn't affect you anymore. On the contrary. And this is the numbness that sneaks in our energy system, as we're also seeing when we talked about the people in the room that were hidden there and just kind of got accustomed to being in the dark and following by their desires or whatever, because they have been numbed into that state. So they're no longer questioning it. They're no longer investigating if it's actually how and what they want to be. We must go beyond the numbness as well and become the observers and the transformers and the change makers. We must develop ourselves to deal with these issues, that as we develop our consciousness potentials and we develop our emotionality and the fields that we are composed of into what we could say a higher order state, that higher order state does not render us lazy or not taking responsibility. It's not about, yeah, I'm no longer affected by it, so therefore I don't need to work with it. On the contrary, the more you are able to not respond to what's going on, the more you're obligated. You have a damn responsibility to work with it, to clear it out. Now you're there, ready to deal with it. So you can clear it out and get to the next level where you again will feel fear, where you again will have to work all the way through into the numbness, but you will use the numbness to become the observer, the scientist, the explorer that deals with what is there, because you no longer respond in an instinctual manner, but you are responding in a knowledgeable manner. And that lifts you to the next step of what you are doing in your progression work and your progression journey. You need to take these capacities to the next level where you use it scientifically to understand what it's made of so you can clear it and get rid of it. That's the first step of reality responsibility. The rules of engagement is also for the reality, but just as much for others. You could say, yes, the laws of energy are completely on the reality itself, but if you are looking at reality as an interactive system that is working with you as well as you working with it, not that you are to personify it in any ways or forms, but it is energy, and energy is something that you should have responsibility towards, even though it's just a system, quote unquote. It is still imbued with a lot of life forms that are sustaining themselves from that system. So you have to use the rules of engagement there as well, not just towards others, but also the system itself. And that's the true understanding of compassion. Compassion is not about being all emotionally or too bad for you, whatever I feel for you, human BS or whatever's going on. True compassion is the real understanding of what's going on out there. And then you see it as it truly is, and you deal with it as it needs to be dealt with. You transform whatever comes your way in the manner that it allows you to transform it. And sometimes it will shy away because it doesn't want to be confronted. It doesn't want to be worked with. And then you will lose sight of it for a period of time and you will think it's gone. You told it to go and you think it's gone and then it's not there. No, it just moved into another level of your energy fields, like the electron that just got energy by confronting you, and then it got more energy, so it pushed itself further out. Instead of being in the fourth dimension, it's now floating around in between. So you can't see it because it has pushed itself to a higher state. By confronting you for a short period of time, by showing itself for a short period of time, where it got energy from you, so it can now be in a higher field until it loses that energy and then it gets sucked back into the fourth dimension where it actually belongs. Then you can see it again. And it is up to you every time you see things to clear them to their root and not just what you see as the surface thing of it. You need to get all the layers, as I talk about in the advanced clearing work. You need to work all the layers of what is in front of you, from the slug that is in front of you into the technology and the elemental that keeps it alive, because you can remove the slug. But if you don't get the technology and you don't get the elemental, it'll just be recreated. If you don't get the codes in your energy system, it will just re-manifest itself. Because the technology will drive in energy to the elemental will be, it's kind of an electric pulse, it will kind of, and then it will spawn off shed of spores that will then create the new blueprint of energy that will then spark to life the code systems that you still have in your energy field. So this is also part of when we talk about, okay, I just want to ascend and I just want to wake up and I just want to do this. That is what you wake up to. That's the truth of this system, that whatever's going on here is a very, very complex journey of learning how to deal with whatever's there in the maturing process of becoming who and what you truly are. And what are you then? What does it mean to become something you truly are? Does it mean that you return to who you were? No, it just means that you're able to integrate who you were and what is still of use to you. And then you will modify it into who you are today. And then you will figure out what you will do with these talents. How will you use these capacities for what use, for what change, for what progress? Not just you and yourself alone. That's a huge part of it, because we know what you are will influence the world around you. But it also needs to be put in motion, into execution, into exemplification, where it gets an X version. EX is actually Greek and it means out, as in you have in, which means in, and X means out, exit. That kind of goes out. So it needs an expression where it is X, out, pression, power, energy. It gets an outburst of change that leads to something. And we can now there say, well, then let's take the whatever is in the base program and change that according to what we know and what we know needs to be done and what the challenges are. And there you will again get into a new territory where you say, well, I don't know what's the right solution. I don't know what is the right approach in this world. I don't know if we are going to have aliens walking around the streets, if that's the right solution. I don't know what is the right solution for this system. And that's a good place, because we don't know. And we cannot take the responsibility on the world and claim that we know what's best for the world, because we don't know. The world is made up of many different souls and many different races and many different jurisdictions and many different factions and many different groupings. It's all energy that might look solidified, but to the core essence, it's emptiness. It's not. It's upheld by different forms of technologies and different forms of consciousness potentials that are either dormant or explicit, expressed, put out there again. It's implicit, it's either there, dormant, or it's explicit, put out there, which is rare in this reality as it is. So most of what is there is implicit. It's infolded. It is infolded. It's not exfolded. It's not out there yet. So we need to express it. We need to unfold it and not keep it in that hidden state that it's in. And projects are a good way to challenge ourselves. So when we create our own business, or when we create a project, be it a blog or a news podcast or a YouTube channel or whatever it is, that's just the first step of challenging ourselves to get out there and verbalize and put in motion some of the things we know. But we still have the responsibility. We still have the rules of engagement there, because then we go from who and what we are, where we can say we own responsible to ourselves, and we move out to being responsible for others, which means the rules of engagement and the principle put in motion, put into exemplification. How others respond to who and what we are will show us what we are and what we need to work with. So working with others is a reflection of who we are, the next step of dealing with ourselves in a manner that will progress us into taking responsibility for our energy system and the expression and the influential sphere that we have by seeing what comes our way. So with that also goes into counter forces. And as you have heard me say many, many, many times, that those of you who are not in charge of your energy system, you're being used as carriers. And here I literally mean as in higher levels of your energy system might have been distorted due to your imprisonment. It might have been distorted due to your enslavement. It might have been distorted to the reason why you're here. And it might have been changed into that unbeknownst of you in your current state. And you don't think there is anything harmful up there because you can't see it, you can't perceive it. But because I operate there, then I can. And then what is there, as I look at it, it comes to life. And then it spawns to life because I have a vibrational field that goes so high up. So I vibrate it into existence. I ignite it. And you say, well, then don't. Well, I can't, because that's the point. You will discover that as well. As you ignite all of your fields, you will become a vibrational, radiating, living being, and you will influence your surroundings by what you have activated. And you will discover that light is not love. Light is the igniter. True radiation kicks things to life so that they can either be transformed or cleared out. And that's how my energy system is coded as well. I have coded myself to originally, because of who and what I am, to always remember what was, and at the same time always process it and develop it or delete it. Change it into its true potentials or change it into what it was. And then if it can't carry the energy of what it was, the amplification, then it must either present what it actually is, that is the overlay that will then dissolve, and then I will see what's actually there. Then we have a whole other battle. Or it will show what it is and then it's ready to go, and then it will dismantle and disperse, and whatever's left will then be pushed out through the gate systems of my energy system, because I work as a releaser. So I am tuned to unravel evil. So that's part of my energy field. And why have I chosen to do that? Because I have been working for a very, very long time to find solutions to the effects of the timeline event. And to be able to do so, you need to look at the problem. You need to be part of the problem. You need to be in situ. You need to be where shit is happening to understand what shit is about. You can't look at it from the outside and say, that's interesting, looking at it from behind a glass wall. You need to see what it is. You need to see what it does. And if you are an honorable person, you put yourself in that position. You don't use others as tools to understand what it does. Because at the end of the day, because we are unique, then our genetics will respond differently to different forms of genetics, which has taken a very long time for the different regressed races to understand. But you can't claim more and demand more of them because they have not moved beyond fourth and fifth cycle. They have not developed the capacity to see things in its wholeness as part of an interconnectedness and the true understanding of the reality they're part of. They might be technologically advanced, but in terms of understanding of energy, transformation of energy and consciousness, they have a lot to learn. So in that manner, and to finalize this little series of podcasts here, there are different stages of the work. There are different challenges of the work, and it all comes down to our ability to confront and deal with what is shown to us. It all comes down to how to respond to what is shown to us. How do we deal with it? Do we have the resilience and the stamina to continue to track it to its root? That's one of the skill sets that are probably one of the most important ones. Because if you just are content with just scratching the surface, you will never get to the bottom of who and what you are. You'll never get to the root of who and what you are, because the dynamics to track down the root of whatever is preventing you from activating is just the first step of activating your fields. And then you have to have the stamina to continue to unravel what you are and what you have done and still clear out the timelines as part of the chiasm. And then once you go through all of these layers of your chiasm and learn to ignite your vibrational field in the correct manner, and you ignite your mental field at some point and begin to deal with the higher order sciences and the history and whatever's going on, you are still digging deeper and deeper and deeper, unraveling and clearing and transforming to get to the core essence of who and what you are, which, as I explained, cannot be explained. It is a standpoint of consciousness. It is the outermost knowing of something you cannot explain. It's a conundrum. You can only sense it, feel it. It's part of you. You know it's there, but you cannot, no matter how much you try to grasp it, no matter how much you try to express it, you can't. Because then it changes like a different form. It's like when you look at it, it shifts, it changes form because the energy you're looking at it will show a different version of itself. It's like the kaleidoscope. You put the energy and it will create a specific pattern which you then can work with. So knowing who you are is the ability to ignite all the different levels of you so you can work with it, so you can transform it. And eventually express it and put it into motion and put it into something that changes the world around you and the reality field around you. That's what the change maker material is about. It's not just about going into the fifth cycle. The fifth cycle is just putting out the sciences to what it means to be a change maker, so that we have the sciences on top of all the energy compositions and vibrational capacities and everything you have learned in the transition sciences. So the fifth cycle sciences is not to shy away from. Actually, most of you that kind of feel, I don't really want to go there, but that's because you're stuck in the fourth cycle and you never went beyond it, even in your own system. So you have to embark on something that is so new and so different and so something that you are not there yet. So you must just take the time that you need to complete your fourth cycle. But if you want to get out of here, you really want to do the point of return as not the point of no return, but the point of return where you go back into the middle domains. You must go into the fifth cycle. If you remain in the fourth, you will not get out of here. You will not do what you're supposed to do here, no matter whatever brought you here. This reality field, the outer domains, still have a specific purpose. I explain all of that in the template sciences and going into the new reality and going into the change maker material. I built the path for you and all the different steps of knowledge that you need to go to. And fear of pushing yourself into an area of expertise where you are not an expert, where you can't express something into something you know of, but where you are the beginner or where you don't know anything. That is intimidating. And that is something where you'll just kind of, I can't be bothered. I can't really be bothered going there again. But you see, it's not a deliberate choice. If you're doing your progression work correctly, if you're clearing yourself correctly, you will be pushed there when your system is ready to ignite the next level of your progression journey. All of the things that you need to go to is not done by will. That's just the beginning to get you out of the base program. And eventually you will discover that as you are running the push bike or the bicycle and you are treading the pedals, and it's like you go uphill to begin with, and that's where you need to do your will. Similarly, if you want to do exercise and to make it a habit, or you want to change your diet, in the beginning you need will. You need to push through with the will to get to the point where where the bicycle will run on its own, so to speak. And then that will do that for a while, and then you'll suddenly come to a hill or something, then it will go downhill, and then it will grow exponentially. It will just completely run out of control. All you can do is just cling on to the bicycle a while. It's just down the hill, and you just say, what the fuck? And you get enormously scared. And that's where the progression work that you're doing are really kicking in. That's why the clearing work is really kicking in, when it begins to ignite itself and you get more momentum and it pushes you into areas that you would never by your own choice had looked into. That's when you're doing your clearing work correctly. If you are not being pushed into areas where you don't want to look, you are not clearing well enough. You're not putting in enough hours. You're keeping yourself in the comfort zone of the idea that you could become something, but you are too afraid to actually go there because you're not pushing yourself enough. You're not demanding enough of yourself. You're just scratching the surface and deluding yourself to think that you're actually doing progression work. You need to go to all of the levels where you are so not in control, where you are so out in the deep end, and where you literally fear that you will drown. That will teach you how to swim. Or you will drown and you will cease to exist in the mud that is in your energy system. But that's also a solution, because then you will either be what you actually are, or you will deal with what you actually are. Instead of having, as we're seeing with many of these Pleiadian infused humans that are good on the fourth dimension, but everything beyond that is evil and really serious shit and connected to the Orion system. But they present themselves to be all goody-goody, right? They need to confront what they are. Because at some point, all of that, what you call a skeleton of artificiality that is around them, will collapse. And then we will see what's really there. Once the insectoid that is typically in these people that has kept the barrier up of a little bit of, it's like little fireflies keeping up an artificial light that sustains the Pleiadian genetics in the human form and making them look all beautiful and light. Once that is gone, and the elemental, the personality elemental is gone, and some of the elementals that are keeping up the emotional field and some of the snakes that are keeping up the mind field, they are gone. Then we can see what that human will is about. So, and that goes for us as well. So in the clearing processes, where do I want to go with this? I'm getting tired, which is all good, because that means that whatever I want to share here on this point, I have shared. And I think, just to sum up a little bit, because I'm kind of, that's it. I'm there. I have shared what I needed to share with the step back in the progression work, kind of tied up or some of the loose ends, tie a bow on them and say, these are some of the things that if I were to go back in 2017 and do YouTube videos, what would have been the right level to speak? That would have been this. Would I have dared to speak at that level back then? No. Not in a million years, because I was not ready for that level of information. I had not encountered what I have encountered the last 5 years. So in the relooping, you can say, well, I'm back where I were in 2017, but it's not the world that's been relooped. It's actually those of us who have energy systems that can carry the next set of the work that needs to be done the next 5 years. 30% of the human population, we've been relooped to reposition our perception field with what we have learned the last 5 years in an earlier stage of what were, but unfortunately not on the same timeline, because these timelines are gone or distorted or have crumbled and fallen. So we are on a different set of timelines. So that poses a new challenge. That poses the challenge of everything I kind of achieved in the other ones are there, but it's not as clear and it's not built in the same manner as it were 2 weeks ago. So I have to rebuild myself. I have to get the knowledge again. That's also why I'm doing this. Okay, so I'll just do 3 podcasts where I round all this up that should be said and what needs to be said, and some of the frequently asked questions and some of the things that normally is part of the sessions that I talk with people. Because one of the reasons why I'm also letting go of the whole advanced psychotherapy and the session potential out there, which I already began back in 17 of letting go of, because I already back then, I realized that it's the same questions over and over again, and it does not change anything that people get the answers. What changes things are your energy work. What changes things are you realizing who and what you are by your own endeavor, by your own inner work, by your own clearing work. Because there you will get it, not as me talking to you, but you seeing it, feeling it, experiencing it. dealing with it, being overwhelmed by it, ignited by it from your own energy system. That is what kicks you to life. And that is what shows you that you have viable genetics. Because let me just be completely frank with you, if you don't have any viable genetics, then that will never happen, no matter how many slugs you remove, no matter how many snakes you remove. If there are no consciousness potentials in your energy system, your past lives, your past versions, your original composition cannot ignite because it isn't there anymore. And that's also a realization to be made. That's also a self-responsibility and a self-clarity that must be done, really looking in and saying, is this actually, I'm putting in, you can begin with saying, am I putting in enough hours of energy work? And I can say all of you clearly, probably not. So you've put in more hours. If you come up to this hole where you're taking out 10 or 12 hours a day doing energy work and nothing happens, well, then step one is because you're not doing it correctly. You're using a lot of time, but you're straying off. You're not focused enough. You're not pushing yourself enough. You're not clearing deep enough. You are still too focused on eating the wrongful things, or you are not doing enough exercise, or you're still too much out in the base program, or you're still too connected to the base program, or you're still emotionally entangled in too many people. There are many steps to be able to clear yourself. All of your energy course to your family members, your offspring, your partners, your co-workers, where you have been in your this life and past lives, and all of these entanglement, that web that is in your emotional field needs to be cleared before you really kickstart the vibrational field. So there are many, many, many layers. So don't be discouraged by me saying that. But to be able to see all of these layers, there needs to be some higher potential in you that pushes you to do it, because you are showing by your every being that everything you're doing, all of your attempts, your aspiration, as it's called in the old secret societies, you're aspiring, you're putting in the hours of energy work, and the effect might not be what you think it will be, but you are showing what is up there, what is hidden, that you want to be kicked to life because you are doing what you need to do. You're exemplifying the method to ignite yourself. And by that, you're sending a signal to the rest of your energy system. You're also sending a signal to all of the things that are higher up that for a long time have used your energy system to keep itself alive. Or if you are under the imprisonment, you will discover that that portion of your energy system, as I explain in the Psyche-S Energy, is done and it needs to be evaporated completely. And the moment you get to that level, if it is that dark, well, then you are in severe danger of actually becoming what is up there. So you need to know how to deal with these things before you get there. And that's part of the Project Blue Flower. That's part of learning to master the base program. That's part of learning to master your diet, learning to do your daily exercise, learning to do your daily clearing work, learning to keep yourself focused, learning yourself to put out strategies and follow through with your strategies to achieve the goals you set for yourself, to change your financial situation, to ensure that your livelihood around you is in a position where you can do the clearing work, because you don't know what will come later on. You might have to take out days of it at a time where you're focused on clearing work because you're dealing with some levels of your energy system that's really nasty. Trust me, this body I'm in is not a beautiful, pristine little angel. She never was. I have dealt with all of these issues, including, and let us not exclude that one from this little talk, all of the ones I've talked with, all of your energy systems have been imprinted into mine. I have seen, felt, dealt with, experienced, and struggled with everything you hold. And the sad thing is that, yes, it imprints, and yes, I have to clear it out, but it doesn't change a damn thing in you, which is the sad thing. You might feel that you get a little bit of burst listening to this one, or you get a burst of energy talking to me. But if you're not, that's just me exciting your energy system to ignite and get in motion. But if you don't take that push of energy that I have given you and use it like the electron to keep yourself on that higher state of awareness, you will just burn it off and create distortion in the process and sink to an even lower state. It's like eating sugar when you're tired. It does not take away that you're tired. It just gives you a short moment of more energy, and then you'll be pushed even further back because you've actually used energy that was not yours to use, and you have been amplified in an artificial manner. So the challenge is, do you hold viable genetics, or are you just imbued and pushed up by factions that are using you to do the progression work, or entities that are trying to save their own skin, or regress genetics that are part of you as the TGs, or whatever? That's the journey that you are taking. That is the developmental exploration journey that you are on. You don't know what you are, but you will learn as you do these things, as you challenge yourself, as you get more and more empowered, because you are learning to push through. You're learning to follow through. You're learning to do what you want to do. And in the end, if it turns out that you have no viable genetics, that all that you have achieved, quote unquote, is to be plant-based, is to do daily exercise, is to take good care of your body, is to clear out your emotional field so you get to the technologies and the regress genetics, and then there's nothing beyond that, then you have done that part as the first of many. Remember, we are not islands. We are part of a unity field of all existences, and what we do will change. Like we talked about the beacon of light. If everybody was beacons of light, this world would shine, right? It does not mean that it will develop itself into the next level, but it would definitely shine. Darkness would not have a footing there. It would not be able to put 1 foot to the ground if we were all shining with compassion and love, right? Just to use that as an example. But that would just create a unity field of compassion and love. That would not push us into the next level. So there you have the argument of the Dark One saying, we need to be here, so we will constantly challenge you with crisis and constantly trying to take you over and do whatever we can to make you trip and fall. And I don't agree with that one, because we can develop each other on different levels of light, on different levels of holographic understanding, on different levels of sciences, as it were in the Pillar Project. We don't need evil and crisis and disasters and all sorts of horrible things to make us remember who we are. On the contrary, it's like telling a parent that's grown up being beaten and abused, is telling up the best way you become a full human is if I beat and abuse you, which is a load of crap, because that just traumatizes. It does not progress. Progression is done in an environment of trust and the ability to work with what needs to be transformed if we are to upgrade it into an ordered system. Strength built in chaos and via crisis, yes, that creates a warrior. But that is what we had in the previous universal cycle. It is not taking us into the purpose of this universal cycle. So, point being, we have a lot of work to do. And I ask of you, as in your work to understand who you truly are and in the classes that you are doing, just remember that in the classes, I am working from the angle of getting you to the point where you are mature and empowered enough to dig deeper so you can push yourself into all of the areas of what needs to be healed and unraveled and cleared. I've shown you snippets of it, but the one that gets you to the fulfillment of what you can become is you and nobody but you. So you are your own guru, your own teacher, your own light, your own warrior, your own defender, your own guardian, your own judge, your own scientist, whatever you need to be, you choose to become that by working with it, by investigating what it takes to get you there, by doing your energy work, by clearing yourself, by challenging yourself, and by putting goals and strategies into how to achieve these goals and how you are to work with the information that you have got so it can be put into exemplification. put the goal in of how can you change the world. You don't know what it means to change the world, but you are working to find something that could change this world into a place where we wouldn't have the issues that we are having now. We don't know where we are going, but we have ignited the process of working to find solutions, because nobody knows what the solutions are, because there's not one solution. There is one solution to each issue, and we need to deal with each issue one at a time. Solve that, go to the next. Solve that, go to the next. And then we will discover if we've done that correctly, the whole pattern will unravel, and then beneath there, that's the solution. The solution is not what we think it is. The solution is to begin the process of finding the solutions, grow in the process of finding the solutions, develop in the process of finding the solutions, and progress our consciousness potentials in the process of transforming energy to find the solutions. And then we will discover that the solutions are nothing what we thought they were. But when we reach that point, we will see it as it truly is. And then we will know, yes, that was the solution. I would never have thought of that, because the solution is beyond your current capacity. It is beyond your current mental capacity, and therefore you cannot envision it. You cannot think of it. You have to create yourself to be able to be it, because you are the solution, not things out there, but who and what you are and what you exemplify. Thank you.